for anybody that, everybody in XRP knows what he looks like now, but he looks like the stereotypical, computer nerd programmer is. He has long hair and not as much hair on top, and looks kind of like the stereotype mad scientist for crypto stuff. And I remember when I met him for the very first time, it was at the Bitcoin meetup in Silicon Valley there that I helped to get started. And he showed up in person, and he said, "Oh, I'm Joel Katz from the forums." And my initial response, I think, was like, "That's your real photo on the forums," because up to that point, I thought it was just kind of like somebody went on Google image search and tried to find the stereotypical image of a cryptographer, crypto nerd image, and use that for his profile. But it turned out it was his real profile.
Just as we've seen in our previous video where we found out that although Jed McCaleb was the originator of the Ripple idea, another key figure who was the second individual to join the Ripple bandwagon was Roger Ver, the Bitcoin Jesus, who was among the first pioneers of Ripple. Today's update talks more in depth about yet another key person in the Ripple camp, David Schwartz, one of the two original architects of the XRP ledger alongside Jed McCaleb. Before we move on, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on bell notifications, and check out the description section for some useful links.
I had met David Schwartz in maybe the year 2000 at an artificial intelligence conference in Silicon Valley, and I had a really nice conversation with him. And after chatting with a little bit, it was real clear that he leans heavily libertarian. But at that time, he was working as a cryptographer for the NSA. And so I asked him, I said, well, if you're such a libertarian, why are you working at the NSA? That's kind of the opposite of what libertarians are supporting. And he got this twinkle in his eye, and he rubbed his hands together, and he said, because they have me working on the most subversive things imaginable.
Last week, we talked about a tweet from ProCoin News that links the Ripple CTO to the founder of Bitcoin, known as Satoshi Nakamoto. In response to this, the Gandalf-esque figure of Silicon Valley, David Schwartz, aka Joel Katz, replied, "I have almost the entire skill set needed to have been Satoshi. It's certainly plausible that I was part of a group. Nevertheless, it's not true. I didn't find out about Bitcoin until 2011. And that was a tweet from back in 2021. Fast forward to today, in a recent twist of events, we have Ripple's Chief Technology Officer attesting to his involvement with the elusive group as he responds with this recent statement. What makes this even more plausible is this tweet that indicates that the domain names for Bitcoin and the XRP Ledger websites were registered from the same IP within the same month or two. So who was behind these registrations from back in the day? My best guess is both these guys, Ripple CTO David Schwartz and Bitcoin Jesus Roger Ver. Guys, listen to this.
Make things happen. So I actually paid the salary for Joel Katz is his screen name, and his real name always escapes me because I originally know him from the Bitcoin talk forums in the early days.
David Schwartz.
David Schwartz. Thank you. So his screen name was Joel Katz on the Bitcoin talk forums, and I remember.
So following the trending update that just broke out, the US government has known who Satoshi Nakamoto is all this time. Yep, you heard that right. Believe me, I was also shocked when I heard the news. But it's true. And even more intriguing is the fact that David Schwartz had almost come to admit in a recent statement that he might pass for a group member of the enigmatic band known as Satoshi Nakamoto. In fact, according to these latest reports, this group is not just one person, as many have long speculated, but a group of 4 people. We've seen in the past where various people have claimed to be a part of said group, such as Australian scientist Craig Wright, Dorian Satoshi, and Nick Szabo. Whereas more recent news says otherwise, looking at this image from ProCoin News, where we have Arthur Brito, David Schwartz, and Jed McCaleb, all Ripple past and present employees, in addition to a yet-to-be-disclosed 4th member. The Bitcoin Jesus had already been familiar with not only Silicon Valley and the tech space well enough at the time, but he also had a good relationship with Ripple, just about the same time the XRP and Bitcoin web addresses were registered, leading up to the assumption about David Schwartz and Roger Ver's involvement in the creation of Ripple can't be displaced since they had both been working closely together at the time. We have more than enough reason to believe that the 4th party in that photo is more likely to be one of the foremost crypto enthusiasts ever, the Bitcoin Jesus or Roger Ver. And I say this again and again, listen to this, guys.
Roger, I'm not so much against the Bitcoin part, but the maxi attitude part, is just something that really drives me up the wall. And I don't know whether that just comes from the fact that, I mean, as a libertarian, I like to try to evaluate things with an open mind, not just be a believer in something and just go about it blindly. And I was having a discussion in Twitter yesterday with a guy that I like and respect, but he really loves Bitcoin. And I asked him, is what Satoshi put in his white paper the reality that we have now? Did Satoshi have in mind 65% mined in China, high fees, slow transaction times, and using an enormous amount of energy? I said, which part of the reality of Bitcoin right now today do you feel comfortable encouraging other people to put their hard-earned money into it? And he came back and responded, well, I don't like any of those things. And I said, well, then what is it you're recommending
that says a lot
Bitcoin for? No answer. So I don't. So let me ask that to you in a different way. Do you believe that the reality of Bitcoin today is what Satoshi, whether that was Craig Wright, haha, or a group of people or whoever Satoshi was, do you think that the intent that they had when they wrote the white paper is the reality that we have with Bitcoin today?
Yeah, clearly not. The very title of the Bitcoin white paper written by Satoshi Nakamoto is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Bitcoin no longer works as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and the developers behind it aren't even trying to have it be a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. They're openly opposed to people being able to spend it and use it on things. Their entire mantra at this point is just hold it. And so if anybody's being fooled or tricked, it's thinking that that BTC is Bitcoin. It's not at this point. It has the Bitcoin name, but it doesn't. It's not even remotely similar to what was described in the original Bitcoin white paper. So XRP is much closer to Bitcoin at this point than what everybody's calling Bitcoin.
And Roger, another project.
So what is the backstory behind it all? Well, according to the information gathered from a series of exposés, as indicated by this article from ProCoin News, we start with Jed McCaleb, a guy who constantly seems to skirt any liability or responsibility of any kind with seemingly no valid reason why. Exhibit A, McCaleb was deeply involved with the Mt. Gox and somehow allegedly sold it right before it went under, impeccable timing. Exhibit B, Jed then co-founds Ripple and creates XRP. Eventually leaves the company with billions of XRP that for some reason he is allowed to sell for many years, including the years following the SEC lawsuit. That's right, instead of the SEC suing Jed, who was there at the creation and who is still selling massive amounts of what the SEC deems a security, they sue Garlinghouse and Larson instead. Jed skates and rakes in millions if not billions in his XRP sales. How is any of that possible unless you're a made man, connected, working for the government? A theory has been floated around that Jed is selling his XRP to the government, and this is all a huge part of the plan of the government's reclamation of XRP. A very interesting theory that has merit and makes a lot of sense. But the transactions are all public on the ledger, right? And we can see he's selling to different wallets. Well, you don't think the government would use the same wallet each time, do you? Of course not. I know I've been talking about the government's buyback plan, the Rothschild family's involvement, and all of that for a long time. And without tangible evidence, it all seems like gibberish. But if this right here doesn't sink in for you, then I don't know what else will. And now, more interestingly, David Schwartz has responded to tweets by these media powerhouses calling upon his attention to attest or deny his involvement with the foremost crypto crowd, Satoshi Nakamoto, which he, of course, didn't deny. Meanwhile, Jed McCaleb's taco stand wallet has run dry. But that's it for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in tomorrow's video.